Alright, so earlier this week there was a post in regards to a new simulator that came out that allows you to create your own command spell from scratch. And all you gotta do is type in your name and it will generate your very own version, just like the ones that you see in Stay Night. So I went ahead and did mine, and there's two different versions. One is for my real name, and then the other one is for my channel name. That's what most people did. They do their names and then they do their screen name. Now, by first looking at this, I gotta admit, I didn't think it was gonna work, but it turns out that it's actually pretty good. I do like both versions. When it comes to the one they gave me for my real name, it looks like a lot of things depending on how you look at it. But more than anything, it looks like two open crescent moons laid on top of each other. And I'm like, you know what? This is a real interesting idea. So I decided I'm gonna take it up a notch. I wanna go throughout the command spells that we already have and see if I can kind of try to compare the layout to the ones closest to it. Now, granted, the appearance of a command spell has no actual bearing on what type of servant that you're gonna summon. It does reflect their character and their background. But for the sake of the video, I wanted to know what I'd come up with. So I'm going through the list, and funny enough, one of the closest people to my command spell is Tsiah. What a coincidence. Now, of course, it's not 1-1, but it is closer than all of the other ones if you look through the designs. Go look through them. A lot of them are very unique. In this case, what I'm basing this off of is the swirl structure. There's not that many people that have a swirl design command spell. They usually have something that's a little more concrete. And I think this has a lot to do with Tsiah's nature as a person in general. By the time that the Fourth Grail War started, you know, he was very unstable. You couldn't really place him. So it's very likely that this command spell was meant to represent that. It lacks a proper form. It's kind of all over the place, as a nod to his instability. Most of the command spells are symmetrical. This one is not. His is kind of lopsided. So based on this idea, if I were to summon a servant, it'd likely be an assassin. The way I look at things, and the assassins then are a lot different from the assassins now. Back then, if you told me that I was gonna have an assassin, I would probably throw in the towel. I'm not gonna lie. Cause it's just like, at a certain point, you're gonna hit a wall where you need something else. Even with 100 face, 100 assassins in one, because they lack the actual power, their numbers meant nothing. They were just annoying to somebody who can really hold themselves down. You might get something over on a servant that's not really good, but that's not gonna help you win. That's just gonna prolong the inevitable. But these days, it's a lot different. Assassins are stacked. And I went through the assassin list, and I went through about 5 choices just off the cuff that I would like to summon, but that doesn't mean that I'm necessarily gonna get them, because you have things like compatibility, you have catalyst, you have locations. There's a lot of things that come into play in terms of getting the actual servant that you want. And to make it more fair, I borrowed me summoning any beast candidate or any grand candidate, because that's what anybody would want to summon, right? I'm going just off of base servants. So King Hassan and Kama are out, Koyanskaya and Tez is out, just the base servants. So going off those, I said I have to go with Sasaki, because I feel like he's really good no matter what circumstance you put him in, other than having to deal with a servant that is long range. MHX, naturally. MHX was a really hard choice to make because, you know, you got Shiki right next to her and then Kiritsugu on top of that, who is very tactical and very useful in terms of being strategic and super optimal in terms of using his resources. MHX has some crazy feats. I mean, even some of her worst feats include like causing galactic shockwaves among her fight with MHX Alter. So at her worst, she's probably better than 85% of the servants on this list in terms of power. In terms of strategy, she would definitely be better than OG Saber. Well, actually, she might be worse. And I just say that because at the root of her character, she's pretty much better in her base form, even not considering the seals, because that's just the way that the servant verse operates. Everybody is better. Strategy wise, when you're that powerful, you tend to lean on that power, and it's easy to pull the rug from under your feet because of that. So that's one thing that I would have to concern myself with. But she definitely has shown a decent level of awareness in the way that she does battle. For 3, gotta go with Semiramis. I really always love the dual class aspect. That's a really fruitful thing to have on your side in any given situation. Not to mention that her territory is unlike any other. I mean, it completely removes you from the battlefield and you kind of just get to make up your own rules, to a point where if you hold the right cards, the other person has to come to you, and that has to give you all types of advantages because then they're playing by your game. I mean, just considering the fight with Mordred, she gave Mordred a really tough time, and I honestly don't even feel like she used the best of her capabilities because, again, like I was saying with MHX in terms of power, Semiramis wasn't really fighting her back. She was just using her familiars in her territory. But Semiramis herself, she didn't really get up and do anything to her direct. So then there's that. For 4, gotta go with my man Izo. Izo is ridiculously nice in terms of combat. Don't let his position in the story fool you. In fact, even in the story, he's been seen giving multiple servants with good reputation a hard time. People like Okita, Hijikata, and Ryoma. It's not a mistake that he was coined one of the 4 manslayers. In regards to his drawbacks, I think the worst thing that he would have to deal with is the same problem as Sasuke, and that being beyond his excellent close range skills, he doesn't really have anything to deal with something that's far range. He would have to either create diversions or bring them down to his level, and that's not always going to be an option. And then finally, the last one was again incredibly hard because I'm doing a toss up between Okita, Li Shuin, and Gray, all of which are great units. Honestly, I know how ruthless Okita and Li Shuin can be off top, but I already have too many close range servants, so I'm gonna have to go with Gray just for the sake of having that variety. Now when it comes to the summoning, the other command spell that I noticed that this was really close to was Kashura. Now if you remember Kashura, he is the original master of Richard the Lionheart before he got his contract usurped by Ayaka. It goes without saying that I would take Richard in a heartbeat, but just because of how my second command spell came out, I'm just gonna lean this segment into that one. So for my second command spell, I use the channel name, which is actually Tsiah. Tsiah is just Messiah cut in half and stylized with a T. So it's like tsunami or tsunade. The T is silent. But in regards to that command spell, they gave me one that looks more like a sword, and then the other markings on it kind of bend outwards. The closest ones that I found to that was, again, Ayaka. She has a blade-like command spell. She summoned King Arthur, at least in Fate Prototype. And then Bazette, hers is similar in a way. The only difference is it's dual pointed and it's also diagonal, but it still has that blade-like design. And then Kiritsugu, who also has somewhat of a pointed design, but then the other side is more like a cross. It's a toss-up between those 3. And the way it's looking, it's seeming like I'm fated to have either a Saber or an Avenger, because Ayaka had King Arthur, Kiritsugu had Arturia, and for Ataraxia, Bazette had Angramanyu. Now, as much as I love Angramanyu, I would like to actually win. In a regular war, I can't just keep getting resets until I do. So if I were to take the line that Bazette went and summon an Avenger myself, Avengers are crazy stacked, but they're not beasts and they're not grands. So I'd actually be interested in looking at that. Nito alters, Space Ishtar, Edmund. Actually, this is cheating. This is cheating, bro. Under no normal circumstance am I summoning any of these servants. Edmund Dantes. I would definitely go with Edmund. If I had to take somebody off of this list, it'd probably be Edmund or Jalter. Just because they're good, but they're not like, they're extremely good, but they're not like game altering. Like if I pick Space Ishtar or Gorgon, you know, that's kind of lame. It's just like, obviously they're gonna be better than everybody else. Doesn't mean that I'm a win just because they're better, but it's it's too much leverage. It's way too much leverage to make it exciting, or even a realistic circumstance for that matter. Commas on here, like, come on, bro. I'm just gonna stick with those two. If I go any other servant, it would very likely be somebody like Angra to give it an even playing field. Now, if I pick Angra, that just means that I would have to compensate on my end, because actually it's not even a matter of me picking Angra, because even that tactic of me making up the difference would still be useless. The sabers are more so of a no-brainer. I'm kind of good no matter who I summon, just off the base of being in the saber class alone. I'm gonna have to go Salter, Lancelot, Musashi, Muramasa, and Charlemagne. As far as the catalysts go, as far as the reality of me summoning any of these servants other than compatibility wise are for the most part extremely low. I more than likely can just use the Count of Monte Cristo as a catalyst for Edmund. That's pretty easy. Maybe some type of relic for Jalter. But for all the others, you know, for people like Semiramis, who is an extremely old servant, those catalysts are going to be a lot harder to come by, right? And I'm not Kanan. I don't have the connections to just get all these catalysts that I want and just summon anybody. While it is possible, I doubt it. I'd have to get real lucky. Even Richard would be a lot more simple because I can just use a fake version of something and bring him out that way. And that's actually canon. So even summoning Richard will be easier. And it wouldn't be any damage dealt to me because he's a great servant regardless. It's not like I'm getting stiff. You know, easy to summon, better than most people on the list. That's a steal. But yeah, man, I feel like we would have a lot of fun. I can't really speak to where the Grail War would be because I didn't really plan for this to be that type of video. But as far as the lineups and who I would bring out, that's likely who I'd get. Again, the site, if you guys want to go on it, it's Shindon Maker. I'm going to have it in the description and you can just click on it and make yours straight from here. And you know, let me know what you guys come up with. Just tag me on Twitter and send me what you got and who you think you bring out. Shout out to Pran for sharing this. And I'm honestly hoping to see more things like this. Maybe somebody will do like a Magic Crest simulator or a Magic Circuit simulator. That'd be interesting also.